Excuse me. Sorry about that. What's up, poops and hockey fans? Big Al here on this Monday, December 4th, 2023. And welcome to my weekly check of the NBA and NHL standings. Plus, we'll look at all the games coming up in both leagues over the next 7 days. So, as always, let's begin with the current NBA standings through December 3rd. Starting in the Eastern Conference. The Boston Celtics are on top of the Atlantic Division at 15-4. They are 8-2 over their last 10 games, including 3 straight wins. The Philadelphia 76ers and the New York Knicks are tied for second in the division, both at 12-7 and 3 games out behind the Celtics. Philly is 4-6 in their last 10, including 2 straight losses, while New York is 7-3 in their last 10, including 3 straight wins. The Brooklyn Nets are sitting in 4th place at 10-9, 5 games back, 6-4 in their last 10 games, including a win in their most recent game. And in last place in the division, the Toronto Raptors at 9-11, 6.5 games behind Boston. 4-6 in their last 10, including a loss in their most recent game. Now we'll jump over to the Central Division, led by the Milwaukee Bucks at 14-6, 8-2 in their last 10, including a win in their last game. Then you've got a virtual tie for second place in the division with the Indiana Pacers and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Indiana is 10-8. 5-5 in their last 10 games, including a win in their last game. While Cleveland is 11-9, 7-3 in their last 10, including a win in their last game, and both sit 3 games behind Milwaukee. Then it really drops off. In 4th place, you've got the Chicago Bulls at 7-14, 7.5 games back, 3-7 in their last 10, including 2 straight wins. And at the bottom with the worst record in the NBA, the Detroit Pistons, 2-18, 12 games out already, 0-10 in their last 10 games, including a franchise record 17-game losing streak. The Orlando Magic remains on top of the Southeast Division at 14-6. They are 9-1 in their last 10, including a loss in their last game. Second place are the Miami Heat at 11-9, trailing the Magic by 3 games. 5-5 in their last 10, including a loss in their last game. The Atlanta Hawks are back under 500. They're in 3rd place at 9-10, 4.5 games out behind Orlando. 4-6 in their last 10, including a loss in their last game. In 4th place, you've got the Charlotte Hornets at 6-12. 7 games out, 3-7 in their last 10, including a loss in their last game as well. And sitting last are the Washington Wizards, 3-16, 10.5 games out of first, 1-9 in their last 10, including 2 straight losses. Over to the Western Conference, where the Dallas Mavericks are still on top of the Southwest Division at 11-8. But they've been cold recently, 4-6 in their last 10, including 2 straight losses. The New Orleans Pelicans are in 2nd place at 11-10, just a game out, but they have the same amount of wins as the Mavericks. New Orleans is 6-4 in their last 10, including a loss in their last game. The Houston Rockets have slipped to 3rd place. They're 8-9, 2 games out, 4-6 in their last 10 games, including 3 straight losses. The Memphis Grizzlies are in 4th place at 5-14, 6 games back, 4-6 in their last 10, including a loss in their last game. And the San Antonio Spurs remain the worst team in the Southwest and overall in the Western Conference at 3-16, 8 games out of first, 0-10 in their last 10, including 14 straight losses. So they have the second longest current losing streak in the NBA behind the Pistons. Meanwhile, the Minnesota Timberwolves are tops in the Northwest Division at 15-4, 8-2 in their last 10 games, including 4 straight wins. Next, you have a virtual tie for second place with the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Denver Nuggets. OKC is 13-6, 8-2 in their last 10, including 2 straight wins. Denver is 14-7, 5-5 in their last 10, including a loss in their most recent game. Both are 2 games behind the T-Wolves in the Northwest. In a very distant fourth, you've got the Utah Jazz at 7-13, 8.5 games out, 4-6 in their last 10, including a win in their most recent game. And in last place are the Portland Trailblazers, 6-13, 9 games out, 3-7 in their last 10, including a loss in their last game. That brings us to the Pacific Division, where there's a virtual tie at the top with the Sacramento Kings and the Phoenix Suns. Sacramento is 11, 7-3 in their last 10. Phoenix is 12-8, 8-2 in their last 10, and both picked up wins in their most recent games. A very close third are the LA Lakers at 12-9, just a half game out behind Sacramento and Phoenix. 6-4 in their last 10 games, including a win in their most recent game. Fourth place are the Los Angeles Clippers at 9-10, 2.5 games out, 6-4 in their last 10, including a win in their last game. And falling into last place are the Golden State Warriors at 9-11, 3 games out behind the Kings and the Suns. 3-7 in their last 10, including a loss in their most recent game. Looking at the playoff picture, we'll start in the East, where, as always, the top 6 teams in each conference clinch playoff spots, and 7 through 10 in each conference would make the play-in tournament. The 6 teams that would make the playoffs in the East as of right now are the Boston Celtics at 15-4 in that number 1 spot. The Orlando Magic at 14-6, same record as the Milwaukee Bucks, but Orlando seeds 2nd and the Bucks are 3rd. There's also a tie for 4th with the 76ers and Knicks, both at 12-7. Philadelphia is the 4th seed at the present time. New York is number 5. And then the last team would be the Indiana Pacers, sitting in the 6th spot at 10-8. They are in a virtual tie with both the Miami Heat and Cleveland Cavaliers at 11-9. Both would make the play-in tournament at the present time. 9th is the Brooklyn Nets at 10-9. And the 10th and final spot would go to the Atlanta Hawks at 9-10. On the outside of the playoffs out east, you've got the Toronto Raptors at 9-11, a half game out behind the Hawks. Then it's the Charlotte Hornets at 6-12, 2.5 games out. The Chicago Bulls are 7-14. They are 3 games out. The Washington Wizards at 3-16 would sit 6 games out already. And the slumping Detroit Pistons at 2-18 would be 7.5 games out of the play-in tournament. And in the West, the top 6 to make the playoffs would be the Minnesota Timberwolves at 15-4. They're the number 1 seed in the West. Oklahoma City and Denver in a virtual tie for 2nd. OKC at 13-6 would be number 2. Denver at 14-7 would be number 3. Also a virtual tie for 4th place with the Kings and the Suns, the co-leaders of the Pacific Division. Sacramento sits in the 4th spot at 11-7, while Phoenix is number 5 at 12-8. The sixth and final team to claim a playoff spot would be the Dallas Mavericks at 11-8. They're in a virtual tie with the LA Lakers at 12-9. That puts Dallas at number 6 and in the playoff field, and the Lakers at number 7 and the play-in tournament. Also in the play-in tournament would be the New Orleans Pelicans at number 8 with an 11-10 record. And then the Los Angeles Clippers at 9-10. And the Houston Rockets at 8-9 would round out the play-in tournament in the West. LA would be number 9, Houston number 10. On the outside, you've got the Golden State Warriors, 9-11, a half game out. The Utah Jazz at 7-13 would be 2.5 games out. The Portland Trailblazers at 6-13 would be 3 games out. The Memphis Grizzlies at 5-14 would be 4 games out. And the San Antonio Spurs at 3-16 would be a full 6 games out of the play tournament out west. Okay, now let's take a look at the games that will be taking place in the association over the next 7 days, starting with tonight's 2-game schedule. The Boston Celtics visit the Indiana Pacers at 7:30 Eastern Time. Then you've got the New Orleans Pelicans and the Sacramento Kings at 10. Tomorrow, December, you have another 2 games. The New York Knicks at the Milwaukee Bucks at 7:30. And the Phoenix Suns at the LA Lakers at 10 p.m. Eastern. And both of those games looks like they'll be televised on TNT. Then you have a full slate on Wednesday, December 6th. You got the Orlando Magic at the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Memphis Grizzlies at the Detroit Pistons, and the Philadelphia 76ers at the Washington Wizards, all starting at 7 p.m. Eastern. After that, you've got the Brooklyn Nets at the Atlanta Hawks, the San Antonio Spurs at the Minnesota Timberwolves, rather, and the Miami Heat visiting the Toronto Raptors. Those 3 games will start at 7:30. Next are the Charlotte Hornets at the Chicago Bulls and the Oklahoma City Thunder at the Houston Rockets. Both of those games are at 8 p.m. Eastern. A half hour later at 8:30, the Dallas Mavericks will host the Utah Jazz. Then at 10 p.m. Eastern, the night wraps up with 2 more games. The Portland Trailblazers at the Golden State Warriors and the Denver Nuggets at the LA Clippers. There are no games scheduled for Thursday, December 7th, so we'll jump ahead to Friday, December 8th. You'll have 3 games starting at 7 p.m. Eastern, including the Detroit Pistons at the Orlando Magic, the Atlanta Hawks at the Philadelphia 76ers, and the Toronto Raptors at the Charlotte Hornets. The Brooklyn Nets will host the Washington Wizards at 7:30. At 3 more games at 8 p.m. The Cleveland Cavaliers at the Miami Heat, Golden State Warriors and the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the Minnesota Timberwolves at the Memphis Grizzlies. At 8:30, the San Antonio Spurs will host the Chicago Bulls. Then at 9 o'clock, it's the Houston Rockets at the Denver Nuggets. And 2 games on the West Coast at 10 p.m. The Dallas Mavericks at the Portland Trailblazers and the LA Clippers visiting the Utah Jazz. There are no games scheduled on the 9th, which is Saturday, so we'll jump to Sunday, December 10th, and there are also no games scheduled. All right, so that is a look at the NBA stands, the playoff races, and the upcoming games for this week. Now we'll turn our attention over to the National Hockey League. We'll begin in the Eastern Conference, where the Boston Bruins are on top of the Atlantic Division, 24 games played, and a record of 17-4-3 with 37 points, with 16 wins in regulation or overtime. The Florida Panthers remain in second place, 24 games played, 14-8-2, 30 points, all 14 wins in regulation or overtime. The Detroit Red Wings are in third place, 23 games played, 13-7-3 for 29 points, and all 13 of their wins coming in regulation or overtime. The Toronto Maple Leafs are in fourth place, 22 games played, 12-6-4, 28 points, and 8 wins in regulation or overtime. The Tampa Bay Lightning are in fifth place, 25 games played, 10-10-5, 25 points, all 10 victories in regulation or overtime. The Montreal Canadiens are in sixth place, 24 games played, 10-11-3 for 23 points, 8 wins in regulation or overtime. Followed by the seventh place Buffalo Sabres, 25 games played, 10-13-2 for 22 points, all 10 wins in regulation or overtime. And sitting at the bottom of the Atlantic Division are the Ottawa Senators. 19 games played, 9-10 record, 18 points, 8 wins in regulation or overtime. The New York Rangers are on top of the Metropolitan Division, and they have a pretty healthy lead. 23 games played, 18-4-1 for 37 points, 17 wins in regulation or overtime. The Carolina Hurricanes are in second place, 23 games played, 14-8-1 for 29 points, and 13 wins in regulation or overtime. Then you have a points tiebreaker for third place. The Washington Capitals play 21 games. They are 12-7-2 with 10 wins in regulation or overtime. Then you've got the New York Islanders, who've played 23 games. They are 10-7-6 with 9 wins in regulation or overtime. And the Philadelphia Flyers, who played 24 games. They're 12-10-2 with 10 wins in regulation or overtime. All three teams sit in a tie for third place with 26 points apiece. The Pittsburgh Penguins are in sixth place, 23 games played, 11-10-2 for 24 points, 11 wins in regulation or overtime. Seventh place are the New Jersey Devils, 22 games played, 11-10-1 for 23 points, all 11 wins coming in regulation and overtime. And the Columbus Blue Jackets round out the Metro Division, 26 games played, 8-14-4 for 20 points, and all 8 wins in regulation or overtime. In the Western Conference, the Colorado Avalanche have the lead in the Central Division. 24 games played, 15-7-2 for 32 points, 14 wins in regulation or overtime. A close second are the Dallas Stars. 22 games played, 14-5-3, 31 points, 13 wins in regulation or overtime. In third place, you've got the Winnipeg Jets. 23 games played, 13-8-2 for 28 points, all 13 wins in regulation or overtime. The Arizona Coyotes sit in fourth place. 23 games played, 12-9-2 for 26 points, 10 wins in regulation or overtime. The St. Louis Blues are in fifth place, 23 games played, 12-10-1 for 25 points, 11 wins in regulation or overtime. The Nashville Predators are the number 6 team in the Central, 24 games played, 12-12 record, 24 points, all 12 wins in regulation or overtime. At the bottom of this division, you have the 7th place Minnesota Wild, 22 games played, 8, 10, and 4, 20 points, 7 wins in regulation or overtime. And in last place are the Chicago Blackhawks, 23 games played, 7 and 16 for 14 points, and 7 wins in regulation or time. Now to the Pacific Division, led by the Vegas Golden Knights. 25 games played and a record of 16, 5, and 4 for 36 points, 13 wins in regulation or overtime. The Vancouver Canucks are in second place. 25 games played, 16, 8, and 1 for 33 points, and all 16 wins coming in regulation or overtime. The Los Angeles Kings are in third place. 21 games played, 14, 4, and 3 for 31 points, and all 14 of their wins coming in regulation or overtime. The Calgary Flames, playing a lot better, sit in fourth place. 24 games played, 10, 11, and 3 for 23 points, all 10 wins in regulation or overtime. The Seattle Kraken are in fifth place. 25 games played, 8, 11, and 6 for 22 points, 7 wins in regulation or overtime. The Anaheim Ducks, who have been slumping lately, they have fallen down to sixth place. 24 games played and a record of 10 and 14. That's 20 points, with 9 wins in regulation or overtime. Seventh place are the Edmonton Oilers. 22 games played, 9, 12, and 1 for 19 points, 8 wins in regulation or overtime. And still sitting at the bottom of the Pacific, the San Jose Sharks. 25 games played and a record of 6, 17, and 2 for 14 points. All 6 of San Jose's wins coming in regulation or overtime. All right, looking at the playoffs in the NHL through December 3rd, the top 3 teams in the Atlantic Division would be the Boston Bruins with 37 points, the Florida Panthers with 30, and the Detroit Red Wings with 29. Top 3 in the Metropolitan Division are the New York Rangers with 37 points, the Carolina Hurricanes with 29, and the Washington Capitals with 26. The top 3 teams in the Central Division would be the Colorado Avalanche with 32 points, the Dallas Stars with 31, and the Winnipeg Jets with 28. And the top 3 in the Pacific would be the Vegas Golden Knights with 36 points, the Vancouver Canucks with 33, and the LA Kings with 31. The 2 wild card spots in the Eastern Conference would go to the Toronto Maple Leafs at 28 points and the New York Islanders at 26 points. Philadelphia also has 26 points, but they played 1 more game than the Islanders, so this would put them out of the playoffs at the present time. Tampa Bay at 25 points would be 1 point out. Pittsburgh at 24 points would be 2 points behind. Both New Jersey and Montreal with 23 points would be 3 points out. Jersey has 2 games in hand over Montreal. Then you've got Buffalo at 22 points. They're 4 points out. Columbus points, putting them 6 out. And Ottawa with 18 points, which puts them 8 points out of the playoffs right now. The wild card spots in the Western Conference would go to the Arizona Coyotes with 26 points and the St. Louis Blues with 25. On the outside, you've got the Nashville Predators 1 point out with 24. 2 points out at 23. Seattle would be 3 points out with 22 points. Both Minnesota and Anaheim would be 5 points out, both with 20 points. Edmonton would be 6 points out with 19. while both Chicago and San Jose would be 11 points out of the playoffs in the West, both with 14 points. Chicago has 2 games in hand over the Sharks and 1 more regulation victory than the Sharks. Okay, now let's take a look at the upcoming schedule in the National Hockey League for the week of December 4th through December 10th, and we'll start with tonight. You've got the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Philadelphia Flyers playing the back end of a home-and-home. These two teams played in Pittsburgh on Saturday, and now they're playing at Wells Fargo Arena tonight at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. The Dallas Stars will face off with the Tampa Bay Lightning also at 7. So you got 2 games at 7 o'clock. You have 2 more at 7:30. The Montreal Canadiens will host the Seattle Kraken, while the Winnipeg Jets are home for the Carolina Hurricanes. At 9 p.m. Eastern Time, it's the Washington Capitals at the Arizona Coyotes. Then at 10 o'clock, the Vegas Golden Knights, will play host to the St. Louis Blues. On Tuesday, December 5th, which is tomorrow as I'm recording this, you got the New York Rangers at the Ottawa Senators and the Los Angeles Kings at the Columbus Blue Jackets. Both of those games are at 7 p.m. Eastern. The Detroit Red Wings face off with the Buffalo Sabres at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, with the San Jose Sharks and New York Islanders doing battle at the same time. An hour later at 8:30 Eastern Time, it's the Nashville Predators at the Chicago Blackhawks. Then you have a couple games at 9 p.m., the Minnesota Wild at the Calgary Flames, and the Anaheim Ducks visiting the Colorado Avalanche. And at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, it's the New Jersey Devils at the Vancouver Canucks. On Wednesday, December 6th, only 4 games on the schedule. The Pittsburgh Penguins at the Tampa Bay Lightning at 7. The Dallas Stars and Florida Panthers also at 7. The Vegas Golden Knights in St. Louis against the Blues at 9 Eastern Time. And the Carolina Hurricanes visiting the Edmonton Oilers on Wednesday night at 9:30 Eastern Time. They got a pretty full slate of hockey on Thursday, December 7th, with 4 games facing off at 7 p.m. Eastern, including the Buffalo Sabres at the Boston Bruins, the San Jose Sharks at the Detroit Red Wings, the LA Kings and the Montreal Canadiens, and the Battle of Ontario, the Toronto Maple Leafs visiting the Ottawa Senators. 30 minutes later at 7:30, the New York Islanders will host the Columbus Blue Jackets. They have 2 games starting at 8, including the Dallas Stars at the Washington Capitals, Tampa Bay Lightning at the Nashville Predators. At 8:30, the Chicago Blackhawks host the Anaheim Ducks. And then you have a multitude of games out west, 3 face-offs at 9 p.m. Eastern. The Carolina Hurricanes are north of the border on Thursday night, facing off with the Calgary Flames. The Winnipeg Jets play the Colorado Avalanche, and the Philadelphia Flyers battle the Arizona Coyotes. All 3 of those games are at 9 p.m. Eastern. At 10 p.m. Eastern, it's the Minnesota Wild at the Vancouver Canucks. And the final game on Thursday is at 10:30 as the Seattle Kraken host the New Jersey Devils. Then on Friday, December 8th, you only have 3 games. The Pittsburgh Penguins at the Florida Panthers and the St. Louis Blues and Columbus Blue Jackets both will start at 7 p.m. And then 2 hours later at 9 p.m. Eastern, it's the Minnesota Wild at the Edmonton Oilers. Over to Saturday, you have a couple of day games. The Arizona Coyotes take on the Boston Bruins at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 11 a.m. locally here in Phoenix. The New Jersey Devils and Calgary Flames and the Vegas Golden Knights and Dallas Stars will both face off at 4 p.m. Eastern. Then at 7 p.m., you have 4 games. The Montreal Canadiens at the Buffalo Sabres, the Ottawa Senators at the Detroit Red Wings, the Nashville Predators at the Toronto Maple Leafs, and the New York Rangers visiting the Washington Capitals. At 7:30 Eastern, it's the LA Kings at the New York Islanders. Then at 8, it's the St. Louis Blues and the Chicago Blackhawks. At 9 p.m., it's the Philadelphia Flyers facing off with the Colorado Avalanche. And then you have 2 games out west at 10 p.m. Eastern. The Carolina Hurricanes visit the Vancouver Canucks. And the Tampa Bay Lightning face off with the Seattle Kraken. And on Sunday, December 10th, we got kind of hockey, including a couple matinee games. The Florida Panthers visiting the Columbus Blue Jackets on Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Then you've got the New Jersey Devils at the Edmonton Oilers at 4 p.m. Then you have 3 games starting at 7 o'clock on Sunday night. The Washington Capitals at the Chicago Blackhawks. The Nashville Predators at the Montreal Canadiens. And the Los Angeles Kings at the New York Rangers. At 8 o'clock, it's the Winnipeg Jets and the Anaheim Ducks. At 9 p.m. Eastern, it's the Minnesota Wild continuing their West Coast trip against the Seattle Kraken. And the last game of the night is at 10 o'clock with the Vegas Golden Knights hosting the San Jose Sharks. And that is a look at the NBA and NHL standings and the playoff picture through December 3rd. And every game playing in both leagues over the coming week. I'll be back at about 5 p.m. Eastern Time as we'll look at the college football playoff standings, the last ones before bowl season starts. And may I say that now there is a little bit of controversy involved. Me today at 5 Eastern Time for that. In the meantime, like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Ring the bell and get notified every time I go live. Big Al signing off. Thanks for watching and enjoy the hockey and basketball action this week. Peace out.